Why don't you introduce yourself?
Thank you. I am Lo Croiset. I work for Happy Valley HomeCare. Our business is in Victoria. We have a huge amount of clients and participants in Victoria. We're an associated provider, and that means that we broker out our staff to registered providers in aged care, and we specialise in domestic care, personal care, and gardening. And we love every one of our participants. We've got a huge workforce, and I actually live in Newcastle, in sunny Newcastle. So I do my job.
That's well, isn't Wales.
I know, it rocks.
Yes, I'm actually originally from Sydney. I moved to Melbourne, and I was actually in Newcastle 2 weeks ago because my brother lives there.
Oh, you're kidding. Next time you're here, look me up. We have to catch up.
Absolutely. Well, yeah, that's lovely. I mean, that's a great introduction. So should I call you Lauren or Lo?
I'm happy with either. I respond to either. Lo is my nickname, and it reminds me of my niece who calls me Lolo because she can't say Lauren.
Brilliant. So we'll start with your LinkedIn name because it's going to get published in LinkedIn and every other social media channel, right? So we'll start with that. So Lo, and let's go back, how long have you been working in Happy Valley and what made you start in this sector?
So, yeah, that's a great question. I fell into this sector, actually. I had been working in very corporate environments, much to the delight of my Indian parents. And, nothing ever really quite sat right with me. And at one point in my career, I was working in defence and aerospace and really feeling completely unfulfilled. I was working on a fantastic project. It was very, very exciting, but there was just a lot of, emptiness to that role. And I happened upon a position as a project manager with Deafblind Australia. Mm-hmm. And I took that role and I absolutely loved it. I really understood what it meant to work for people and with people. And to be honest, I feel really naive saying this, maybe even ignorant, but I just didn't know that. I didn't know that that type of fulfillment really existed in the workspace. And I didn't know that, you could find so much success, personal success, working, in community roles. Which sounds really weird to say, but I guess that was just the way that I kind of grew up. And once I'd sort of fallen into that, my husband and I had a hospitality business that we ran as well. And then we'd run it in COVID in Melbourne. That started to roll down and my contract with Deafblind Australia was rolling down. So I was looking for my next thing. And my girlfriend had started this business, Happy Valley HomeCare, and said, "What are you doing next?" And I said, "I don't know. I'm looking for something exciting, but in community." And she said, "Well, please come and join me. We really need someone to kind of help with the operations and grow the business." And I was like, this is my jam. So together we just, and her husband, we've grown this wonderful business. As an associated provider and a brokerage, we have some fantastic relationships in the industry. And I think I really feel special to be part of a sector that is growing, that is important, and it's like a genuine part of our lives. So that was 3 years ago, and coming up to my 4th year next year.
Oh, well, congratulations. I mean, it is actually quite fulfilling to some degree. You got kids?
I do. I got a 13-year-old and a 9-year-old, both boys, high school and still primary school.
That's brilliant, which means you have aging parents?
Yes, it does.
Okay, so let's talk about our little kids and the big kids.
Yes.
That's how I say it. And like you said, we are all from the Indian subcontinent. So our parents are rock stars. Basically, they know everything. They're doctors, they're engineers, they're scientists, politicians. They're all in one pack, right? I don't know about your parents, but my dad is certainly that.
Yeah.
He is the medical professional out there. He is the
my dad's like that with IT. So my dad's an IT professional and he did a double degree in accounting as well. So he is the accountant and the IT professional.
They know it all. So how is it that and this is amazing because we can both kind of relate and have a really good laugh at it, right? It's kind of roasting our parents, right? No, we can't really do it in front of them because we're gonna get probably bamboo.
Get a shoe thrown at us.
I know, right? So this is a very safe space for us to open up and roast our parents, right? And just show them later on, look, this is what we have done to you.
These are
jokes aside.
Edit out.
Oh, no, I'm keeping this in. This is my mission, right? To prove my dad not so much wrong, but to hold his hand into healthcare, right? So he's completely against everything that I kind of recommend or suggest even, right? He thinks that I don't have any, what do you know? You're still so young. I was like, no, okay, sure.
Yeah.
So we are probably still 10 years out.
Yeah.
So let's talk about our big parents, our big kids and our young kids, right? So how is it juggling life and being a parent, being working in the business and raising a family?
You know, I reflect on when my parents were my age and the differences in, I guess, the feeling of and the vibe of the household. I would say that, you know, 2025, people are a bit more liberated, you know. It's definitely a much more relaxed vibe in our household. I think that we're a lot more open and transparent. We talk a lot more openly about our problems, even with our kids who are young, because we want that. We want them to understand that whether you're a child or an adult, you know, people go through stuff and that's okay. And we're here to help each other and answer questions and, you know, sometimes work things out together. And I think that, you know, at times it is really tough when you're very passionate about work. You know, it's really easy to get overloaded with it. There's so much happening with aged care and the sector as it is. And so for me personally, I often have a mixture of emotions, you know, a real roller coaster of it, feeling very excited to very scared, very overwhelmed, and then sort of, you know, a bit at my wit's end sometimes. Like, what are we all doing? What are we going to do?
Where's the playbook?
Yeah. And I've got to keep reminding myself that we're all kind of just making it up as we go as well, because there's so many changes that, you know, we literally are in that same boat, right? And I imagine that a lot of other parents who are our age in the sector, especially, like, they're all kind of feeling the same way. They're feeling like, God, sometimes I really need to sit down and I need to watch like a lot of webinars. I really need to read, you know, 250 pages of the support at home manual that's just been updated. That's going to take priority and I need to focus on it. And it can be a real hard balancing act because you want to be there spending time with your kids. But for me, I also see the importance of working in a sector that has that long-term goal and impact. And it is a sector that my kids and me will be in at some point, you know?
Absolutely. And I think, like, I mean, the last Aged Care Act was like, what, almost 15 years old, right? 15, 20 years old. So I'm not sure I'm not going to guess your age.
You can.
I'm a rude person. You know, I'm pretty confident you're way younger than I am. Even though my kids are fairly young, that they're 6 and 2. You beat me in that game, but I'm beating you in the age game. It's because of our really good skin. People can't tell. So we'll keep that as a secret, right? But you're right. Like, look, this support at home potentially will impact us in about 15, 20 years time. So we're kind of living by age here. So it's going to impact us in the long run. So it's kind of like obviously 10, 15 years ago, me and you and I will probably never even think about these things, right? I mean, we would, but in a different angle, not the way we're doing it right now. And you're right about parenting. Parenting doesn't come with a playbook, and I know for the fact I'd love to have a playbook. Chapter 11, how to talk to my 6-year-old.
Yeah.
I'm following a whole bunch.
It gets worse, Archie, before it gets better.
With her. My 2-year-old has an attitude problem, so I'm dealing with that. I'm reading Montessori programs, how to raise a kid. how to raise my parents and where they are at the moment. It's not so much of raising them, it's about assisting them through this new journey that they're on, right? Is it the same case for you?
Yeah, and that's a good point that you're saying, because I feel like culturally, the way that perhaps we were both brought up, a lot of that parenting probably wasn't not a great framework for today's parenting.
Yeah.
And so, probably there's a bunch of us that are really fumbling a bit in the dark. You know what I mean? Because we were smacked kids or we had a lot of rules and regulations to live by in the household. But I would say, that my household is quite opposite to that. It's, the kids are, we treat the kids like they're adults to a degree.
Yes.
We probably try and include them more in, house decision making. And I remember when I was younger, my parents, if they talked about finances, I remember one specific memory, and I was very young when I came to the door and I was like, open the bedroom door, what are you guys doing? And they were like, oh, no, we're talking. And they shut the door, and I heard a little bit of them, discussing finances. But that memory for me is that's kind of represents what that kind of parenting was. It was hush things are behind closed doors.
100%.
Yeah.
100%. Yes, I totally agree with you. It's almost like you're not supposed to. In fact, up till a couple of years ago, my dad said, don't worry about the house questions. It's all under control. And I'm saying that it's not. I have no idea what you're talking about. You're telling me everything is under control, but it doesn't look like that way.
Yeah.
At one point, I had to go and sort out, and he goes everything is written down in a diary, step by step, and you will know after I'm gone. And I was like, that's not very reassuring. It's going to be oh, who do I go and ask about a whole bunch of these things that you left me to deal with, right? So I think it's that. But I do understand now. I in a funny way, I question them, because there's that stigma, the taboo that they still kind of try to protect. I think that's culturally kind of ingrained. I don't want you to take this burden. I think they kind of come from that way. Your job is to just study 24/7.
Yeah.
And be the shining light in the society, right? I don't know who's going to get offended by this comment, but I'm sure someone will. But I wasn't certainly the shining light of my family. My brothers were, on the other hand, they were the shining light. But talking about it, actually, it's quite interesting, because that mindset is now impacting their care journey as they have gone past the age of 65 and entered into that realm of, we call it golden years.
The golden years. That's part of our motto, actually. Keeping golden years golden.
That's what we want. I'm actually copy that in one of my podcasts. I'll take your permission in writing, and if this consent that I can use that line. Keeping gold. Yeah. But do you find that the same thing, with your parents? Do you guys talk about it?
Yeah, I find that really interesting, right? I actually wrote a note down about, culturally, how things can be really culturally different for different people as they grow older. And I was listening to OPAN and CODA. They had a support at home section yesterday for elders. And when I looked around the room in the audience, there were predominantly Caucasians and, maybe a few Europeans in there. But what I didn't see was many Indians or Asians. And I noticed that a lot, because I do wonder whether or not that is because there's a language barrier. I think a lot of it has to do with, we know we don't need to go to those. It's complicated for us. There's no way that you know it as well.
It is not complicated for my dad to talk about home care. I'm trying.
And you're right. There's also that non-burden. I don't want to be a burden.
Yeah.
And I think that happens in all elderly people, and they either have driven by this fear of I don't know about that, and I'm too old to learn about it, and I don't want to know any more about that, or it's just literally a bit of shame, why would I need help? I don't need help. Yeah.
I don't need
I'm not
help.
going to be a burden to anyone. My son, my daughter, the carers, I'm not going to be a burden to anyone. I'm just going to...
The fact that I find it like almost like I'm getting weak or I'm feeling weak. I don't want to show my weakness. Like almost asking for help is a show of weakness. It's almost like a pride that the fact that they have to come and ask.
Yes. Yeah.
It is a pride thing. And like you said, like you don't see many, and I haven't seen many in community gatherings. You will never see people from the subcontinent or from the Asian cultures. I've been to a church program before where they asked a lot of relevant questions, but it's in those religious settings they may open up, they may talk to each other. One uncle is talking to another uncle. Everybody's an uncle. They're not really uncle related to us, but they're everybody's an uncle. So it's kind of like that way. And then everyone is asking like, oh, what do you do? I call it the FOMO effect.
Yeah.
One of them is doing it like, oh, what are you doing? I'm gonna do it. I think the education piece is quite important, and maybe because they come from a time where they migrated to a new country and they've been through their journey, and however made their journey where they're built in certain ways. And funny enough, I see that kind of similarities in older Greek clients of ours. Like they have that rock hard. Like even if they had a fall, I'm fine.
Yeah, they have a real, it's not quite resilience, but it's also this resilience and resistance to help, but they've got this like stoic resilience that they're sort of just like very proud and have this pride that can't be knocked or anything, because like you said, a lot of immigrants came here either with nothing or through like a troubled journey or a chaotic journey at one. I don't think there were many of our
an
parents.
adjustment, and rightfully so, adjustment. So everyone comes from it.
Yeah, that's right. And then there's the language barriers, and I think when a lot of people were coming as well, like I know for my parents, they came when the White Australia policy was lifted, and it's such a weird and awful thing to say. Isn't that weird to say? Like,
You're right. Everyone's journey, and interesting enough, I met a lot of Greek or Italians, and pretty much everyone has the same trend. Very, very proud, and they worked really hard, and like the fact that they're now going to depend on their kids or even ask them to help them out is a big task. They see that they're the one who's like a big bear hugging the whole family together, keeping them together. And it's the same thing in the I'm Bengali by background, so in the Bengali communities or in the Indian or in general the whole Indian subcontinent communities or even in the Asian communities, the same. Question is, how are you going to break this?
I was literally going to ask you the same thing. Like, how do you fix this? Because, there's a significant amount of immigrants that make up the aged care sector and the general community, and it's tough. Actually, in fact, I was on the New South Wales Department, the government, and they were, specifically talking about, how do we reach and help communities that maybe English is a second language, or there are these multicultural communities. In fact, it was Multicultural New South Wales that was leading this whole thing. And I sort of, was really bemuddled, I guess, befuzzled. I don't know. I was bemused by the fact that they had asked this group a question, because most of the people that were coming onto this consultation were all working. They were professionals. They're not like all volunteers, and they all, part of these regional or remote local groups, community groups. So I just don't think that they've got a really good representation of, the breadth of communities out there. And they're asking us, like, how do we connect with them?
Yeah, it's like, look, and it's a really, really important question, right? And the best part is people like us, those who are in the industry, we have a role to play. That's what I believe. We have a role to play. Now, we have to take the education and then take it to the community and kind of meet them in those settings where they feel more comfortable.
Yeah.
And then we have to present it in a way that we have no agenda, right? Because for the whole community things like, what's your agenda? Why are you here? Why are you doing this? Like the first stand is always the most defensive stand. And then kind of taking them through that journey is like, look, obviously support at home looks slightly more different than, or vastly more different than a home care package where they didn't have to pay that co-contribution amount. Now, obviously the co-contribution amount will come into play. Let's see how that plays out. You're gonna see a lot of pushback. I have already heard that pushback from the clients who are from the CAL communities. There's a real thing about this conversation about that you guys are trying to take more money out of our pocket. That's another thing that is out there. There's a sentiment out there. But I think what we need to do, those who are working in the sector, we just need to basically present the data, right? Present the facts in front of them that how Australia is aging. There's a real workforce shortage in the country. Everybody's asking for John or Susanna or Ramesh or Sajesh, but at the end of the day, there's only so many Sajesh, Ramesh and Susanna and John available. Not many people are actually actively going out there and studying Certificate 3 and Certificate 4. Right?
No.
Not shortage of people. We need to start having conversations about these things in the communities that we know that they are reluctant to go out there. I'm quite confident there's a lot of people that still haven't started their care journey, what we call it care journey. As long as you turn 65, the CHSP, the home care package or the support at home, your care journey starts.
That's true, and I think a big problem is that people don't know where to go for the information, and that it's not that it's not accessible, it's just that people literally don't know. But I think that a really good point is that, people like you and I who, have a cultural background and a call background, we should be trying to partner and collaborate more so that we can kind of reach these communities and just have one voice on, look, these are your options that are available. And maybe that's part of the answer. It's just a lot of patience and making the time to actually go out to these communities as a little group or individuals with the same message, and just giving them information in a way that they'll actually be able to take it as well. Yeah.
You're absolutely right. Like, present the information in a way over a period of time, they start to think about it. Right. Yeah. We're talking about a group of individuals. They had a pretty tough upbringing to some degree. They're resilient. They come from a geographical place where there are more than 1 billion people. Competition, it's in nature. You have to be the best to beat the best. That kind of fighting mindset, they're always in that fighting mode, if that makes sense. Do you know what I mean? So you have to kind of bring them down a bit and then actually show them the path. There's so much more this country is offering. And if I put things into perspective, right, what we have is so much more than anywhere else in the world.
Yeah.
Healthcare is one of the key human need, right? And it is almost free, right? It is one of the best health. I'm not gonna say it is the best, but it is one of the best healthcare systems that is out there. And you're right, we have to collaborate, organization like yours and ours, an individual like ours, and then kind of tap into those communities and go, hey, do you know about this? Have you ever thought about this? It's almost like talking to our own parents. I practice it on my dad, worst case on my mom. She's my subject.
Yeah, but funnily enough, will the other aunties and uncles in the community listen to you and not your parents? So maybe that's the...
You see,
that's the thing. So we have to tell them and be the pathway for this education, because they'll listen to us, and then just by way of, association, we'll just feed it into the families as well, just so that they know. But then they can always reference us, right? Oh, yeah. Archie said this and Archie said that. Lo said this, Lo said that.
Yeah, we're gonna have to find that auntie that has the, that every community has that one auntie or one uncle that everybody kind of goes to for advice.
Yes, yeah.
You just have to find them.
Yes, infiltrate.
It's actually quite funny, but it is so much full of insight that one thing that we just discussed, right? That how to break.
Yeah, it's true.
They have these community leaders, unspoken community leaders.
Yes, that is true.
They don't have vital, but their opinion matters, right? But it works. it works.
Yeah. Yeah, it really does. Yeah.
Now, personal level question, how do you speak to your dad?
With great difficulty at times. I'm the oldest of two. It's just two, me and my brother. But I'm also the daughter. I'm not the son.
Okay.
You know, so there's that. No, you don't know each other. I remember one of my first jobs was working at Vodafone, and I very quickly rose up in Vodafone. And within 3 months, I was one of the most successful salespeople there, and I got promoted. And so I remember saying to my dad, I'm doing pretty well there, and I was explaining it all and saying, maybe do you want me to organise you a new phone, because I know how to do that, and I can show you the new phones that are coming out. He literally said to me, "No, you don't know what you're talking about. I spoke to, this woman on the phone. She told me this. She told me that. She's getting me a phone." I was like, okay.
You don't know nothing.
You know nothing. Yeah.
So how do you break into him?
How have I what, sorry?
So how are you breaking into him? Like, for example, because the reason why I'm asking this question is quite important, right? Some people will watch this, some people won't. But those who may watch it, they may have the similar kind of problem regardless of their ethnicity.
So I think like from my personal family view, I know that my brother can talk to my parents and they will listen to him. He's always been the golden child. And I adore my brother. So, the way that I talk is to feed information to him, and that actually works in our family. So I think there's, that's something that you kind of teach your kids, isn't it, as well? Like, you teach your kids, like, be a good human. You don't need to have shame. If you want to ask questions, and, if that's not the right person to go to, find someone else. And I think that as an adult who probably didn't learn that when you were young, you've got to start breaking down some barriers for yourself as well. And it's about putting your pride aside, and it's about putting, stuff aside. I don't really care that I probably will never get the recognition that I want.
That's okay. You and me.
That's okay. I'll deal with that separately with my therapist.
Yes. This is a trauma release session. It's okay. It's a safe space. We're holding a safe space.
Thank you. But, so I think that for me works really well. I know that I have an auntie who's not doing very well, and she's in her early stages of dementia. And, that wasn't an easy conversation to have with him, to sort of say, I work in aged care and I know quite a lot, and I actually have quite a few contacts who can probably give me good advice, doctors, that sort of thing, and in the dementia space. And because in the whole family, I've sort of been the black sheep. I had a child out of wedlock. I lived overseas. I changed my job very many times. So, I didn't ever do things the normal, acceptable way. Even he was just like, yeah, okay, all right. And so again, I went to a different cousin and I said, look, I think I can help, but I'm not gonna force it, because, and another layer to it is, and actually you would probably very much be in this space as well. You have to respect their wishes at the end of the day. You can do whatever you want and provide the education and the advice and support, but at the end of the day, it truly is the older person's choice, whether or not they're your parent or not, and you think that you know best. I feel very strongly about that. And I know that sometimes that maybe isn't 100% right. Each situation is very different, but as someone working for participants and elders who are not related to me, not my parents, I see both sides of it. You probably see this very much so. You see very worried families and very concerned families, and they believe that what they want to give to that older person is what they believe is what's best for them. But then you have these older people who are scared. They're very proud. And they genuinely just don't want, driven in a certain way, I guess. And you kind of respect that too,
Well, of course, because if you don't, then it's going to be you and me, right?
Yeah. exactly.
It's a very simple question, right?
Well, what's worse as well, like having a massive argument with your parent who, and look, I'm going to talk about someone who, an elder who may be well into their, at the end of their life journey. And I think what's worse? Is it worse having those big arguments at the end and then everyone's just miserable and then you stuck with those memories?
Yeah.
I don't know what the answer is, or is it that you just kind of, you have to put that pain of watching your loved one pass in a way that you don't love and you don't want to see?
The reason why I asked is because I know there's a lot of us in the community, and regardless of our ethnicity, like I said, it's such a common scenario across all ethnicities, whether you're from a 3-generation European migrant families or from the Indian subcontinent or from the China or from Hong Kong or from Taiwan, doesn't matter where from, it's very common. It's very common, right? One of the things that really works on my end, and I can only share like you're sharing, right? Like what I do, I educate them. It's the same thing if my son comes up to me 30 years later, if I'm not on top of my things and he gives me something like, oh, you have to do this because you're old now, you're not going to feel great about it. That's the truth. You're still alive and well. You still can make decisions. Yeah, you're probably a little bit slower with a bit more aches and pains, but you're not obsolete. You're not a furniture anymore. Do you know what I mean? Someone can't just pick you up from one place and set you apart in another one and just forget about you, completely dismiss the last 50, 60, 70 years of your life. And often we forget who they were when they were in their 20s, in their 30s, in their 40s, right? They were just like us, just from a different time, just from different year. I know for a fact my dad was into sports. He's an architect. So for me to just tell him like, oh, you don't know anything, if I start the conversation that way, I've lost him at the very first conversation. Yeah. So my strategy has always been like, oh, have you seen this? Oh, have you noticed this? Oh, you have a pain. How about what did you do to fix it? Because you're the doctor, right? Even though he's not. Through conversations like, oh, Dad, I've seen this in some of my other clients, and kind of referencing him, it takes longer.
It does.
To take him into that journey. But now I've got them into that place where if I say something, they'll go, oh, this guy may have some point.
Yeah. But isn't it's so similar to, how you start parenting your teens, right? Yeah. You can really try to recommend and give them advice and hope that you have educated them enough to make good choices and good decisions and know, the consequences of their actions, but also know the benefits of good choices and that, everything that kind of comes with that. And it's the same, like why would it be any different when it comes to you then having to have those same discussions to your parent? That for me is like you're role modeling what you're teaching your own kids.
Because kids are really, really, they're like sponge, right? They don't actually follow what you're saying, they follow what you're doing.
Absolutely.
For an example, my son will say like, I'll never send you to aged care. It's purely because basically when he says aged care means nursing home, is because my mom-in-law, she thinks someone told someone that, hey, these guys are gonna send you to nursing home. And it's a big taboo in our family units, right? Yeah. Nursing home is like a no-go zone.
That's right, yeah.
Which
it's kind of like the kill me before I go into a nursing home type attitude.
Literally, what? How can you? I mean, that conversation is not going to happen in my house. I had my grandma living with me when I was in year 1. I have wonderful memories of her. Those bedtime stories I tell my kids, so she's living through those stories. So I kind of want to do the same thing with my kids. The whole principle of it was, like I said, the idea of aged care in their head was so negative. So I kind of had to take them on a journey. Like, hey, it's not all bad. It's not how it's presented to you from the very get-go. It's different. So it takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of effort to actually start having those conversations.
Yeah, like you said, you've got to just chip away at it a little bit, right?
Yes, that's right. That's the right term. You got to chip away slowly. Show them. Don't do it for them. Let them do it. Let them make these calls but give them the information if they're missing some information. Because I know for a fact they will come to you. They will come to us to ask, like, hey, is this the right thing? Have those relationships kind of like, even though their parent is in a different way, we are constantly working. It's almost like I'm working backwards. How I'm working with my kids, I'm now working with my parents, kind of like. That's what we in the popular culture is called the 40s squeeze, right? So you're kind of juggling both worlds. You're parenting your kid at the same time. You're kind of relearning how to build relationship with your parents.
Yeah,
that's what I find quite interesting. It is challenging, but it is quite interesting, and I think that's the way to go for us.
Yeah, it definitely shifts, doesn't it? That's an interesting point. Like, and you don't really know when it's going to shift, do you? It just kind of does, and it almost a little bit without warning. My brother actually, was the one that said to me about 6 months ago, because he's quite close with my parents, and he said to me 6 months ago, he was like, hey, I really want to talk to you about mum and dad. They're really starting to age. And I was like, oh, okay, well, what do you want to talk about? And he's like, I think we need to start preparing, And I think both of us were a bit like, oh, okay, this is happening now. Didn't really have much warning. My parents are lucky enough that they've worked really hard, and they've, put themselves in a good position financially, so they still travel. They're quite active themselves, and, they're my mum goes to yoga classes and she volunteers, and they're quite social. So they've, for them, they probably have 5 to 10 years, if they're lucky, before they really significantly need clinical care and proper, care. They're probably very much starting to get to that point where they could really use some domestic assistance, for example.
Yeah, basically you're doing whatever you're doing. No one's going to stop you. You're just extra pair of hands. Instead of me doing it, somebody else is doing it.
Yeah.
But that's how we are having conversations, right? So like, hey, like if someone gives you extra pair of hands, would you take it? If the answer is yes, why don't you take it? And guess what? You don't have to pay all that from your pocket too. It's almost like you pay $10 to get $90 from the government. Would you do it?
Yeah.
And I said the same thing, like before having kids, I never knew about childcare because I never needed to.
Yeah.
But then came the CCS into play. Good Lord, we have that. So damn expensive. So if someone goes like, oh, Arch, pay me $20, I know 80% is free. Easy discussions, right? So it's kind of having, our parents are in that age group now where we're having to show them those little benefits, and it's having quality time with them when we are there. Our kids, my parents are overseas now. So I tell them like that, just come, because you're talking to them on the phone, on Facebook. It's different than you're spending time with your grandkids. It's far more important in their core years. My late father-in-law, he built a motorbike for my eldest, and he's only 6 years old. And it happened when he was 3 years or 4 years old, 3 to 4 years around that time. He still remembers, and I know for a fact, till he grows old, he's always going to remember that memory that he rode a motorbike with his my late father-in-law, right? So, and he always talks about it, and that's the thing that I unfortunately talk to my dad about. Like, hey, Dad, spending time is far more important than on those Facebook calls, because they're going to remember the time my dad basically spoils my children with ice cream. He loves ice cream, and he just continuously gives them ice cream.
Oh, man of my heart.
And I live opposite to an ice cream shop, right? So they're there all the time. Whenever he's here, he's there literally 7 days a week, sometimes twice a day.
Funding the ice cream shop.
Yeah, he's just bribing it to my kids, and it's completely working. It's completely working well. And these are the memories I'm talking about. Like, right, my dad is 83 years old. There's only 27 winters left, if I'm lucky. That's the truth.
Yeah, you're right. It's reality, isn't it?
Yeah, it could be less. 20 winters is not many. 17 actually, not 27, 17. That's not many. So time's running out. for our podcast and for our parents to go for the care that they deserve. They worked hard, they deserve it. It's people like us who will just go on a journey with them to break those molds. And like you said, we need to collaborate. We need to reach out and find those uncle and aunties, those cornerstone of the Cal communities, and kind of tap into them and break the barriers. And you said a lot of wonderful points, and I truly appreciate you coming in and sharing your bits. And I know for a fact, if we two do this, there's so many other people will learn from us.
I would love to do it, honestly. And, that was something that I actually spoke about. I got invited to speak at an aged care forum 2 weeks ago. And, what I talked about was just love and how important that is to the success of any aged care business. It's so important. If you lead with love, you will listen to your carers more about the things that they need and they want. And you also listen to your elders more about the things that they need and they want. And perhaps they don't want the latest in AI. Perhaps what they want is good food, in the facility. Perhaps, they need their carers to be able to get there on time. So you actually need to schedule 30 minutes in between visits rather than a strict 20. All those little tiny things are what's going to build the credibility of your organisation to the older population, because they're all going to talk. That's what they do. Word of mouth is so powerful. Genuinely going to lift aged care anyways. Like the whole sector will get lifted when we think about like these little things where we lead by love. And I think that, you and I making those collaborations happen and really trying to break down any barriers that may be there of competitiveness with companies that are in the sector, that's just going to kind of lean further and further into that message of love.
One of my favorite subject is my mum and dad, is because I often roast my mum and dad quite a bit, guilty as charged. But the thing is, the beauty of it is that's what I'm learning, right? That's the reality inside my home and inside your home. That means in every single Australian home, that is the reality, regardless of our ethnicity. We all eat the similar way with our hands, and you use utensils or not. Yeah. We all bleed the same. That means we're all having the same problems, right? Not many people are just coming out and go, hey, how do we break this? How do we do this? So through our shared experiences, I'm sure we will be able to make some positive impact in the community. We are just two individuals, one in Newcastle, and was the one in Melbourne now, just talking about our own things, calling each other black sheep, roasting our parents' hair a bit. I mean, I did a lot more than you did, but that is the whole essence of this podcast, right? So thank you so much for coming in. Thank you for tuning to our viewers. If you enjoy it, let us know what else you guys want to cover. Lo and I can probably catch up in the week's time and then may do another one.
That'd be great. Love to. Anything to help the industry.
Thank you, Lo.